So this is one of those passages that comes up every so often in the readings for the lectionary, that causes me to get a little bit of a knot in my stomach. It's one of those passages that's familiar for people who have grown up in the church, and that's certainly part of it. It's like the 23rd Psalm among those passages that you know well, and so I start to wonder, what in the world can you say? Now, it's complicated by the fact that Rita spent a lot of time working on this passage at one point in her ministry. She wrote the teaching helps for a curriculum that Margaret Amer, who preached here, wrote. And so the two of them spent a great deal of time studying these texts, and then she spent a great deal of time not only teaching here, but teaching in other places. And so I don't know about you, but when I go to talk about something like that I know there's someone else in the room who knows it well, it gives me a little bit of that jitters in my stomach. But there's more to it than that, quite frankly. It all goes back to 5th grade. I'm sorry, I'm going way back. 5th grade at Providence Avenue United Methodist Church, where I spent much of my childhood and teenage years. And at Providence Avenue United Methodist Church, back in those days in what was called Sunday school, in that place they had departments. And when you were in 5th grade, you were in the junior department. I don't know how they decided on that name. There was the primary department, the junior department, and the youth department. And in each one of those, there are things you had to do before you could go to the next department. You know, it was all very schoolish and tough. And in that junior department, there were certain things you had to memorize. And guess what? This was one of them. These Beatitudes. And to make matters worse, the junior department met in the fellowship hall, and when you felt, well, not even when you felt, you were just put up front, up on the stage, and asked to recite the Beatitudes, these 12 verses. And all I could think when I was standing up there was, which one comes next? And what is the blessing on the other end? Actually, I thought about more than that. I thought about, this makes no sense. Why am I being asked to memorize this when it makes no sense? How could people be blessed who are poor? How could people be blessed who are mourning? How could people be blessed who are persecuted? It made no sense to me in 5th grade, and I'm not recommending we ask our 5th graders to memorize it. So all of you who are in 5th grade or are looking forward to 5th grade, relax. I struggled with it and wondered about it, especially when I thought about how we use the word blessed in our society, or, you know, and I didn't even think about society, among the people I knew as a 5th grader. I thought about the way we used it. People would say, she's so blessed, she got a new car. Or, they're so blessed, they have it easy in their life. Or, he's so blessed, he's got a great job. Or, wow, you're so blessed, that's a great birthday present. 5th grade thought, right? So what do we do with a passage like this, when that's how we use the word? Maybe if we're trying to see in a new way, we put on some different glasses, we hear some different words. I'll quote Rita, who quotes Margaret, that blessed isn't really the word. It's the word I had to memorize. It's maybe the word that you've all come to know and love, and it is the way we all hear this, but it's not what the word meant in Greek. It meant greatly honored. Greatly honored. And so how is it that that changes this text on this day for all of us? How can we see this introduction to what the realm of God is like? Because it sure is turned upside down, if you stop and think about it. Who's greatly honored? Well, greatly honored in our society are the celebrities, right? The people who are powerful, who get elected to office, the people who have the top jobs in all of the companies, the people who are the celebrities, the people who have lots of wealth, the people who are well known. Those are the ones that are greatly honored in our society, are they not? But not so here in this passage. Who are greatly honored? The poor, the meek, those who are gentle, those who are firm in standing up for what is right without being violent and forceful. Those who mourn, those who hunger for right relationships and way in the world. It's also upside down from and countercultural to what our society teaches, and it all fits well with what Paul writes to the Corinthians, that the wisdom of the world is not at all the wisdom of God, and that God's way seems foolish to the rest of the world. That God's way is so different. That wisdom's way is so different. This passage is addressed to folks who are in a community of faith that is struggling. The temple has been destroyed. They are not sure about how to live out their discipleship to Jesus Christ. They probably thought he'd be back by now, and they've got lots of questions about how they're going to live out this faith that they've claimed and this trust in Jesus. And so wisdom in Jesus lays it all out. It's not the rich and powerful and those who dominate and run over everyone else that are greatly honored in God's way. It is those who are poor in spirit, and those who are meek, and those who are gentle, and those who are peacemakers, and those who are hungering for righteousness, and those who are just flat out hungry. Those are the ones that God lifts up. Those are the ones where God focuses. But then notice how in Matthew's version of all of this, that he describes all of blessed are or they who mourn, or those who hunger. And then at the very end, in that very last one, he turns it as if addressing that community. Blessed are you when you are persecuted on account of me and your trust in me and following in my way. That's when you're blessed. This is a diagram for how we live, but for what God values in our society and who God values. And the point here is God values those who need to be lifted up. God values those who need God's presence and God's help. And where would we find them today? We might find them in the airports who are stuck and their lives have fallen into chaos. We might find them in refugee camps around the world who have been driven out of what was their homes. We might find them in those who are longing to be home but can't go back. We might find them in those who come and take a lunch at the Newark Penn Station, and those who take 2 or 3 lunches and take 2 to people who can't walk over. And we find those who God greatly honors in the ones who can't walk over, and we find them in the people who quietly stand up for what is right when it's unpopular, and those who wrap their arms around the unloved. And we find them in the guests that come through our doors to stay with us for a week through the Interfaith Hospitality Network. And we find them, those who God greatly honors, in the hospitals as they wait with someone they love who will soon leave, or in funeral homes or memorial services as they mourn one dearly loved. God doesn't lift up and hold up the powerful and the mighty and those who are able to dominate and those who are football stars and baseball stars and celebrities of every kind. God holds up those and honors those who need God's help, who are called into God's presence to be loved and welcomed and affirmed, to be reminded that they are and you are children of God. I think I'll always get that feeling in my stomach when this reading comes up, not so much because of the challenge of the text, as that 5th grade stuff is never going away. It's just going to hang around. But I hope I'll be able, and I invite you to see the world and those around us and who we honor in a different way, in a new way, in wisdom's way. Let us pray. Help us to see the world, God, through your eyes as much as possible. Help us to know that we are loved and forgiven and receivers of mercy, and therefore able to love and forgive and offer mercy. Help us to live our lives in faithfulness to you. Amen.